Very nice. Excellent. Good morning and welcome, Peterborough and the Kawarthas Chamber of Commerce. This is a warm welcome to ChamberAM. We just want to shout out Genevieve at the Edison Cafe. Genevieve, thanks for the coffee this morning, friend. That's right. Grab yourself a lunch snack on your way out as well. They always have something stocked here. Trust me, it's delightful. They also make a really neat latte. They make a chamber latte that has local maple syrup in it. It's delicious. Highly recommend. So thank you. Thank you to the Venture North Building. Thank you to Ashford Realty for letting us roll up here for every single ChamberAM. And of course, shout out to our partners, PKED, the DVIA, Innovation Cluster, and Community Futures, all housed in this beautiful building. That being said, our guest speaker was just announced as a board-elect for the DVIA. He's worked with brands like Adidas, New York Fries, Lululemon, Toronto Blue Jays, and Scotiabank, H&M, so many more big brands this very talented human being has worked with, not to mention a ton of local businesses. Welcome to the podium, Jason Wilkins.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. So Chamber, thank you so much for having me. I'm a fairly new member, and as my career sort of progressed, I've been downtown here for years, from going to PCVS, you know, left town, came back, but I always end up downtown here, and it's a real special place to me. So thank you all for coming today. Where to begin? I actually had like this giant speech written out, but I feel like I'm gonna love it because I'm really tired, and I'm better on the fly, so we're just gonna go that route. I got my start early on. Like I've always kind of known that I wanted to do art for a living. But it's a weird thing because it's so much like a part of who I am that I've never really paid attention to sort of the progression of things. It's always just sort of been there. So I would say as early as 5 or 6, like I 100% do. So my mom, my whole family's been always insanely supportive. Jordan knows, like, you know, of anything that we want to do. And I remember one of my earliest memories of sort of feeling that support was Santa came, you know, Christmas morning, and I got this giant easel, like a professional grade, like easel grade. And I think I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And what that did was, I would say it really allowed me to transport myself into art. So I would, we set it up in my room. I remember having my Rock 88 tape. So my Rock 88 tape in, you know, listen to Gloria Estefan, and, you know, and draw for like, I would lose time. Like, and any of you who are passionate about anything you do, you know that, right? Like you just, time just goes. It's insane. And even now in the studio, Nick can attest to this. Like I'm there, and then it's like, oh, that was already 4 or 5 o'clock, whatever. But I would sit there and draw these comics, and just you know, it would be morning, and then dinner would roll around, and that would be it. So that was really kind of the catalyst, I would say, for, you know, feeling that support and knowing that I had that, I'm like, just do my thing, right? And then as time went on, you know, I took art lessons, you know, like we're here at school, Peterborough, to the kids, I would take those. And then it's also a weird thing because it doesn't run in the family. Like no one in the family has an artistic bone, like nobody. So the closest thing I can think is our papa. Our grandpa was a lithographer. So he was, his whole career, from the time he was like, I don't know what, 16, 17 until he retired. They asked him to use a computer, and he said I'm out. That's it, I'm done. So in today's terms, that would be a graphic designer, right? So lithographers, basically they lay the plates down, color, and would create posters and stuff like that. So that's the closest thing I can think of, possibly where I got my creative bone, maybe. So the support from him is always there, and my whole family. So I'm really grateful for that. And it is my mission to make sure that anyone that comes into the studio now feels that, like they know that, you know, you're coming to the studio, it's a safe place to create, and you have the support there. So to go even further back, so I went to PCBS arts program, second year that it came into effect. An insanely amazing experience. PCBS, if you ever stepped in that building, you know that it's a beautiful spot. The culture there was amazing. Left there. I thought, yeah, no problem. I'll get into animation at Sheridan College. I'm that good. Like, why not? Right. And then reality check, I didn't get in. And so I took a start year. So it's called Art Fundamentals at Sheridan College. And that was the best thing that could have happened, because the prep school was sort of what's coming next, right? So, and then before I started, so I got into illustration, and then as I was getting into illustration, my son was born. So that made things really interesting. It was a real challenge. I worked 2-3 jobs while going through art school, made it through, and came back to Peterborough. But before that, I remember clear as day, I tell the story all the time. My friend Greg and I, who actually granted the studio, he lives in Connecticut now. We're driving in this car after graduation, and we say to each other, like, that's it. Like, we made it, man. Like, that's it. Like, we're never gonna work a real job ever. Like, we're professional artists. This is us at, like, I don't know, grade what, 21. And then I spent the next 10 years in a call center, right? So, because I had a family to support. So I came back here, and I took interpretive illustration. So there was interpretive and technical. So we were told, if you want a job, take technical. So I took interpretive. Because I remember calling my mom, and my mom was like, you know, just like do what feels right. Right? Good advice. Didn't feel like it 10 years, you know, as I was, you know, I really wanted a job. Now I think it's good advice, but anyway, left school, 10 years in a call center at AmeriCredit, which is now GM Financial. And I got very good at that job, collecting debt. Like, I got very good at it. I was one of their top collectors. I was a nice guy, like I was the nice collector, right? And I got very good. So art was sort of in the background for a decade. Lost time, regret. Well, don't regret it, because I realized later that I would never do that again. It's soul sucking. And I remember getting up from my desk one day and saying, I'm out. That was it. I stood up, packed my stuff, and rolled. And I had nothing, like literally nothing. Like I went home and told my wife at the time, like, I just quit. And she's like, oh, okay. So I then started looking online. So this was, I don't know, 2008. And I found this job for a water tower. It was on Kijiji or something. And they needed an artist, like, in Penetanguishene. So they needed, this company was coming in to refurbish this water tower. And they're like, hey man, like, can you come out and paint the town logo 100 feet up on this water tower? You'll be gone for like 4 or 5 weeks. And I'm afraid, definitely afraid of heights. But B, I really needed the money, right? And insanely, it paid, I think it was $2,500 bucks, or $3 grand. Like, come on, like like, that's bananas. So at the time, I was like, yeah, like I have to do it. So I spent 5 weeks there, ate nothing but junk food, lost weight. Like I lost 15 pounds because I was up on the scaffold that was swinging because penitentiary is the water. So we were up on the swinging scaffold, and I gridded out pattern on the water tower, and I painted the whole freaking thing by hand, and both sides. And because I had to, right? Like I was in that position where, this is my shot to be an artist, right? Like I'm just gonna make a great impression. So I'll never freaking forget. It was 5 weeks and like, whoo, done. We went through so much crap, and I had guys up on the scaffold next to me, like, dude, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And I was terrified. And so we stood back with the city planners. Water tower. The water tower, like way in the distance. And they're like, what do you think? I'm like, oh, it's great. The wording was all messed up. Like, the logo itself was beautiful, but I had to do the wording. So the wording was messed up. It was all off kilter. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it looks great. And so anyway, long story short, they had to repaint the wording part. And you're like, whatever, you're done. Good to go. So I was like, yeah. But I did it, right? And I knew that, like after that, right? I'm like, I can do that. Like, oh my God, what else can I do? Like, I can do anything. So left there, and then my wife at the time said I want a divorce. So I'm like, yeah, things are rushed. things are shaping up. So that was a shock. And then, so I had no money, fresh divorce, 3 kids. So, awesome. So I went through a thing, as people do, moved to Toronto, saw the kids all the time, back and forth. And then they came to live with me for a bit, and I had 2 jobs there. One of those jobs was working for an illustration agency that I met. So I worked at Chapters, but I met the lady that ran the illustration agency through Chapters. She was in there buying a book. She said, hey, I'm looking for an admin assistant. So I worked those 2 jobs, and that was an eye-opener. We worked in her basement. Interesting lady. And but I learned a ton. I learned like real hustle, an overused word, but man, talk about hustle. Like I dealt with illustrators, did contracts, LCBO, like major big brand contracts, big paydays for these illustrators. I'm like, what am I doing? Like this is like, I'm behind the scenes. I want to be in the front. Like this is crazy. So again, long story short, left there. It's too expensive. Had to move back to Peterborough, and something like clicked when I came back. Because I had been through so much. I think I had this like fortification. Like I was like much stronger than I had ever felt. Right. So I came back, and I got a job. So I was doing marketing for a friend from home. Very part-time. Things were very tough. And I got a job for a craft dinner. So basically I answered and I posted my stuff on, again, Kijiji, one of those, and Craft Dinner reached out and they're like, hey, we need someone to do characters for a social media campaign on Facebook. And this is new, like this is like 2013. So it's like, things weren't happening like that yet. This was kind of a new thing. So how it worked was Craft Dinner fans sent me pictures of themselves doing weird things. Craft Dinner, like we had a wizard who was doing, and like we had, I don't know, it was awesome. So I got to do these characters, these people eating craft dinner. That went out on social media. And then as things do, they stole, all right? So someone saw that. I got another job. Someone saw that, got another job. And I remember saying to Heidi, my wife now, like, oh, you know, I just got hired to do, someone wants me to do a character, and you know, like, someone wants me to draw characters at their party. And like, so now these things, like, I don't take anything for granted even now, right? But now those things come on almost a daily. Whereas back then it's like one up here. I was like, what? Like, this is insane. So that started to happen. And then I got hired by Birchbark Media, which is in the space I'm in now. And I did marketing for them for 3 years. And that was awesome because I found that my marketing and my art together were like a superpower. Like, if you know how to market yourself as an artist, it's gold. Like, because it's not something that a lot of artists really are well versed in, right? So time passed and I started getting more work, and it's Scott, you maybe watch this. We're still friends, and they've since moved just around the corner here. But he tapped me on the shoulder, and I was doing my work at Birchbark, right? Because I was starting to get so much work. So I was juggling their content and trying to finish my own stuff at Birchbark. And he's like, man, you have to choose. Like, you can't be like, you can't be doing your work here. Like, I love you, but you have to choose. So I made the decision. I had enough kind of work behind me. This was 2018. It's not even that long ago. And yeah, he said, like, you have to choose. So I got a studio above Watson Loop, 12 feet by 9 feet, I think. And I was over the moon. And this is, guys, this is only like, what, 5 years ago. I'm 45 now. So some perspective, I only went out 100% on my own as an artist 5 years ago, right? So I don't know what your beliefs are as far as, you know, God or whatever in the universe, but something magical happens literally when you decide to do that. Like, when you decide to take that leap, everything just sort of aligns, right? And then I think I got the studio and didn't tell Scott. I was like, I'll just do both for a bit. I'm like, what? Like, so he said, you know, basically it ended. I had to leave. Had the studio space for a bit. It was amazing. Like a high I've never felt. It was crazy. Like, I think I was in there doing that. And then the pandemic hit, right? So, but I still had enough on the go that things were still good. And then I saw Space Above Flavor, owned by Mike Watt, and I reached out to Jordan. I said, do you want to go in on the space together? Mid-COVID. Sure. And it actually worked out really well. Like, it's a beautiful space. So we sectioned it off. So I had a front rear window. And things were really good. And then I slowly started to outgrow that. Like, physically, I started getting larger pieces, like canvas pieces, more paint. I just needed more space, right? So September actually, of last year, that I said to Jordan, so man, I'm out. And Jordan's like, yeah, you know, like, do what you gotta do. And so Ashburn Realty said, you know, the old Birchbark space is up, you know, if you want to come look at it. So I took one walk through and him to Pod because it was triple what I was paying, which makes sense because it's 1,500 square feet. Like, it's a beautiful space. And him and Todd came back to them, finally had a meeting with Paul, pulled the trigger. Best thing that's ever happened. So I've always kind of just done things and figured them out later. Like, that's kind of how I function. sometimes good, sometimes bad. But I feel like if you're an entrepreneur and like you're in it and you're serious, there's no other way. I mean, at least I can't see one. I mean, how do you flex and how do you grow and how do you have influence or impact unless you're going to take leaps like that. So I've always done that, and then Nick came on not too long ago. So he's been a godsend. It's like he's planning our camps and stuff. So we have a summer camp coming up next week. 15 kids in the studio, and then another one in August, which filled up as well. So we have stuff planned. I mean, they're gonna have a great time. We have all kinds of other stuff in the works. So yeah, it's been one hell of a road, to be honest with you. Like, I actually wrote down some like key points, like stuff that I felt people are like, what? So to backtrack a bit, I'll just highlight a few. Before I went to art school, my parents were not in a position to help. They just weren't. So, and it actually ended up being a real, it actually really helped me out, like that they couldn't help me out. I needed to sort of figure all this stuff out myself. And I said, how am I going to get into art school? Like, there's no money. Like, so this thing showed up. I don't know if you've heard of it, the medical trials in Toronto. So like, there's this place called BioVale, right? So BioVale, you go in, they pay you $2-3 grand, and you get tested on for a month, right? So you go in. So my grandma was a nurse, so my mom checked her, said it's safe, like it's the safe thing, you can do it. So it's not like my parents were like, whatever, you know, be a lab rat, it's cool. So I spent four weeks in a testing facility in Toronto, and to be paid, it was $2,500 on exit. So basically, they would wake you up in the middle of the night twice to take blood. I still have the scar here. They give you a placebo. Some people got the real drug. You know, one of those things, right? Like weird people, like people that would come in off the street, they needed money, and we're all in bunks. So I spent my days playing pool, drawing, like, you know, passing the time with all my girlfriend, you know, my girlfriend at the time. It was summer, having fun. I was, how old was I? 18. And yeah, so I spent 5 years in a testing, 4 to 5 weeks in a testing facility, and left with $2,500 so I could pay first and last to leave to go to art school. So these are the things, and when I talk to kids and I talk to groups of becoming an artist and stuff, I'm like, guys, you don't understand. Like, these are the things you have to do to make things happen. And again, it's not like I knew this. It's not like you think when you look back, you're like, oh, I have a strategic plan. Like, I'm just going to do this, this, and this, and I'll be an artist. It's like, it was very organic. Like, I just did things because I had to, because I knew that art was it. Like, there was no question. There was no question. So yeah, so I did that. And so that was interesting. It got us first and last. One room in a house of 4. There's 4 people, 4 other rooms in the house that were rented out. And then I got OSAP, and I was able to go to school, right? And then Sam came along, and then it started again. So yeah, it's been this constant cool wave of like trying, failing, failing. And the whole time you're doing it, you're just like this. Like, you're just like clawing your way, right? And patience is something else I preach, you know, to kids now. My daughter, Avery, who is an artist too, she just sold her first piece not too long ago. She's 16, and it's this mentality of, I just want it. She sees what I'm doing now, and like, oh, I'll just do that. Like, and it's hard, you can't fault for it. It's hard to put that head on their shoulders. But I'm like, listen, I said, it's cool you want to do this, but be prepared for decades of work. Like, and then it's not even guaranteed. So if you want it bad enough, then you have to do everything in your power to make it happen. And I think that's sort of my thing is to reach that to as many kids, adults who will listen. You know, life's way too short to be messing around and stuff that you don't want to do. And it sounds easy, and I put it out on social, and sometimes I get things for it. I don't care. You know, if you don't like what you're doing, there are alternatives. There are things you can do to make other things happen. And even if you're working that crappy job during the day, there's other things you can be doing at night to create the life you want, right? So I wouldn't take anything away that happened to me over the years. It's all been this crazy, which is kind of unfolded naturally. So yeah, and then you look back and you think, I always use the thought process, like if I were to bring the 6-year-old me to my studio now and say, hey buddy, like, you know, look at it, like, check it out, right? 40 years away. But you know, it's gonna be there. And it's I always say that my art's sort of been like this, it showed my maturity level, because I always think about art as this cartoon character, like kind of sitting on my shoulder like my whole life, like kind of just like, hey buddy, hey, you know, happen. And it's something nobody can take away from you. Like once you have that education, and once you have that, I don't know, it's just so much ingrained in who I am. It's sort of just happened, right? So yeah, here we are. So it's still a struggle, and sometimes it's like, you know, it still does this, but slowly over time, you know, it starts to kind of do more of this action, and that's kind of where we're at now. So yeah, you know, it's been a good ride. Yeah, so I put that there.
That's a great idea.
Yes.
I wrote them down. Hold on. Actually, Jason Wilkins sneakers in the world somewhere, because they keep seeing photos of you with sneakers for your own artwork. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
hard to get Jason Wilkins sneakers.
I know. There's a picture of me on my website that I took. So I have 2 different ones on that I just threw on. And actually it was Mike Watt asked me to do them because he wanted some of his sales section in flavor. So I think that's kind of how that started. But yeah.
Quaker
Yes.
sold out crazy fast.
Yeah.
Can you give us a quick story of when you got involved in that? And my second question to that is, where did you stop having shirts?
I have one in my drawer actually. But that was just super laid back. They just the marketing, the PR firm that Quaker hired reached out to me. And I had no idea it was going to be what it was. They just said, we just need something, you know, throwing some shirts for our anniversary. And I'm like, cool. I feel like I would have way overthought it though, if they had said how big it was going to be. So maybe they did that for a reason, but yeah, it was very organic. Like it was just like, I just did it sounds bad, it was very quick. And it was like I sent them it as a rough. I sent them 2 versions. One was a little bit more detailed, and they're like, yeah, we're good to go. So it was very easy. Like, and then yeah, I did a reprint, and then I had old ladies calling me. Is this Jason Wilkins? Can you? Oh, I just love it. My granddaughter would love. Can you just get me a shirt? So I had to say, you know, I have no control. Like, sorry, but I have to check back. Yeah, so that was cool.
That was really cool. How's everyone do?
You mentioned a couple of times that Kraft reached out, Quaker reached out.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you will share as far as branding or marketing tips, or just sort of being out there. I mean, obviously there is a reason that people have reached out, and some big companies. So
Yeah.
what are sort of some of your suggestions or even secrets around just
Yeah.
kind of being present and being visible so that people will see.
Yeah, I just never stop. I mean, I just never stop. I mean, I'm to a fault sometimes. I had to scale back a little bit. My wife's like, hey, man, you know, like you're on your phone, you're, you know. I'm just always thinking, always planning, trying to come up with new ways to do things. Trying to stay on top of different trends, you know, TikTok is still baffling. So like I'm trying to make sure that I'm visible as much as possible, and nothing is too small. Nothing as far as like I love community events, so I'm all about just literally anything that comes my way, happy to do it. And I think the more see a lot of artists get really romantic about their work, you know, they want to hold it real tight, not share it, right? And it's just sharing every day, all the time. Get your stuff out there, and I'm really conscious of, you know, some branding, but really, and I started putting money behind ads on, so we're gonna get like actually technical about some of the stuff. Instagram, it's changed now. I don't know about you guys, but man, my reach is like way down. But so now I'm having to pay more now for ads. And what happens there is, especially for mural stuff, I do a lot of time lapse. So I'll put those up with music. They're always a big hit. I'll put ad money behind those. And then I'll get a mural, and then I repeat and repeat. And then people just reach out. It's literally just summer is different. You know, like I said, everything really ebbs and flows. Summer is always the tough one because people are just, you know, on vacation or whatever. So I'm having to work harder in the summer sometimes. But really, it's just taking the pulse of things every all the time. Yeah.
Question from the audience.
What would you say the coolest jobs you've got was, you know, or coolest like reach out like for the rocks?
Yeah, that's the one. So I did have it up in my studio. I did some Jumanji 2 came out, or was coming out. So I did a quick character, not a quick character, actually, it's kind of a decent amount of time on it. And just for fun. So I did Danny DeVito, The Rock, and then Kevin Hart. So just a character and a little illustration of that. So I was going in my accountant's office, Gavro, way before the pandemic. I timed things on pandemic. So I was going into the accountant's office. They saw that The Rock had just posted that they started filming, right? And I had this in my back pocket, literally the image on my phone. So I tweeted it out, and I just said boom, or I said boom. Because I had no time to say boom, the boom emoji, and I ran into the accountant's office, right? And I tagged him in it. So I came out of the accountant's office and I saw that he had retweeted it. And he said, I see you're ready to play. Right. And so I looked at it, I'm like, that's not real. Like, but it had the blue check. So The Rock had retweeted my picture, right? And so it went from a horrible day because I was dealing with money to like coming out and like seeing that, and then that, you know, so it's another lesson that I try to tell kids and anyone, like, you know, visibility, like it's just about doing things either for free or because you love doing it, and you just put it out there. And now we live in an age that when I was a kid didn't exist, like there was none of this. So we had to be front facing, like we had to present in person things to our directors. Now it's like you're literally at your fingertips, right? So that was cool. That was a really cool one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Illustration, that's probably like on the top, even though it wasn't a paid job. But mural wise, I had my largest mural late last year, and that was 60 feet by 90 for a film company in Toronto. And that was a wicked experience. So those are probably my top two. Yeah.
What a neat story. You're so interesting. I'm for sure you're gonna see that episode maybe one year.
That's also there. Yeah, if you want to get community focused, there's so much in town that
Yeah.
I'm really proud of. I mean, that one where, you know, teaming up with Humane Society and Republican, and then I did the Republican mural, and then I've done like Pure Candy. I've been there inside of their spot before they open. And it's weird, you look back at some of these things later and you want to go in and fix them, because you're like, it's like you see this progression in your art. So I've almost said at least a couple times, I just come back in and like just rework that. I'm very fortunate. I mean, I work really hard, but it's equal parts community support, which enables me to move beyond the community and do other things. But down here in Peterborough in general, like, I don't know, I don't think I would be anywhere near where I am without that. There's no way. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We're not shooting you anywhere. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Seriously, there's 3 artists that I would recognize anywhere. Van Gogh, Monet. For sure, it's style. So thank you. You're remarkably busy and you carved out time for all this.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys.
Awesome. Follow Wilkins Art Factory, social media channel. What's your website again, Jason?
WilkinsArtCreative.com. And I printed out.
Yes.
So stranger things you before, nothing like it. So I did mini prints for everybody. They're signed in the back of Eddie, the guitar guy from Stranger Things. So take one of those. And then, oh, Nick's got a Nick's on it.
Perfect. If you have any Stranger Things fans in the office.
Take a couple to school if you have school that you know would love it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. We're going to post his video on our social media channels later today. You'll see those come out. Again, thank you, Jason, for carving out time in your schedule, for treating us today to some artwork, to some conversation. We appreciate your story. Thank you to Genevieve, who's working at the Edison this morning. Thank you, Genevieve, for coffee. Grab lunch on your way out. Thank you to Stefan from Ashburn Realty. Sometimes you see Stefan around this building. He helps us open up in the morning and takes excellent care of us. And of course, Ashburn Realty in the Venture North building for allowing us to bring Chamber AM here. We appreciate you. Chamber news before you go. Chamber members tag us on social media. We want to share your content and we are everywhere. Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, you name it, we have a presence there. Chamber AM, the Business Exchange and Boss series are all going to return in September. We're taking August off to get some more planning done, especially with the merger of the 2 chambers this year. There's still a significant amount of work to do. So you're going to see those come out on the other end of September. Chamber members, take advantage of the discounts that you have. They're on the website, pkchamber.ca. There's the Esso gas card, 3.5 cents per liter of gas you can save. Take a look at what's on there. You can offer things as well if you're interested. Chamber, we're your backup team. If you need anything, give us a call, no matter what it is. Our next newsletter goes out on Monday. If you send me news by tomorrow at 12, I can get it in. Just a sentence or 2 and a link will do. And yeah, don't be shy to reach out. If you haven't got Jessica yet, Jessica Gordon is our new sales rep on the Chamber crew. You'll see her around, so get familiar, invite her out for coffee, go get to know each other. And again, if you need anything, let us know. Shout out to New Fox Media, who's currently working our new website. We're super excited. So you'll see that launch, I'm sure, coming early fall. Thank you. Thanks again, Jason. Thank everyone for being here today. Thank you to the lady in yellow that I called out earlier. Great morning, everyone.